theater. I've never actually stood in a real-life theater like this and given a speech, and I suspect there are some people up there, but I can't see you. So I'm going to focus very much on the group right here. It is a real honor and privilege for me to have a chance to be here with you today. Amongst my most favorite things to do is to talk to students and to talk to people who are starting businesses. And in a sense, the energy, the rush, the enthusiasm that you get from folks who are in those phases of life is really, really incredible. In fact, it often, of course, makes me think about the old days, so to speak, at Microsoft. And I've been around essentially since the start of Microsoft. I did not start Microsoft. I lived down the hall from Bill Gates the year he started Microsoft. And I remember I just met this kind of crazy guy. A mutual friend thought we'd like each other because we were both a little crazy. And he was all hours of the night leaving to go to the computer lab and write programs. And some of you looked at what's a computer lab? In the old days, you had to go to someplace to write software. And essentially what had happened in our startup is Bill Gates and Paul Allen had been excited really since they were about 14 years old about the power of a microprocessor. There was a theory that you could take one of these microprocessors and mix it with the magic of something called software and essentially do almost anything. Now, for people who are younger, you say, well, of course, that's the world in which we live. But about 5 years later, Bill was trying to get me to drop out of school to join him in this small startup, still only 30 people at Microsoft when I joined. And I called my mother and father. I was 23 years old. I called my mother and father, who themselves had never gone to college, and I said, I think I'm going to drop out and go join my friend Bill's startup. Drop out was not a good word. Drop out. Drop out. My father said, that's a very bad idea. People who are successful don't drop out. And they said, well, what does your friend Bill, whoever that is, they've never met old Bill, what does your friend Bill's startup do? And I said, well, I can't tell you everything about it, but they do software for personal computers. And my father, who was not, he didn't go to college, but he was a smart guy. What's software? Said my father. And then my mother said, no, Freddie, I've got an even more important question. Why would a person ever need a computer? That was the vision, if you will, behind the startup that I joined. We were 30 people at the time at Microsoft. We had done about $2.5 million in revenue. Just as a reminder, we're almost $80 billion in revenue now, and we have 100,000 people. And if there's a lesson to be learned, it's if you have the right idea, you're at least 50 or 60% of the way to a successful startup. You need the right idea, you need the right timing, you need the right luck, you need the right hard work and energy. You need a lot of things to go right for you, in fact. But a powerful idea almost can't be stopped. And not every idea is going to be as powerful as let's be the first people to do software for microprocessors. Paul Allen actually said to Bill Gates, hey, isn't this great? We'll write all the software anybody will ever use on these machines. Obviously, that was a little bit overstated. But the power of the concept is very, very important. I dropped out, as I told you. I had been at Microsoft about 2 months, and two things were happening. Number one, I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing because the company wasn't very well organized. And number two, I thought the company needed more people. And so Bill Gates and I started fighting a little bit. We're a little like brothers. We find ways to argue. And I said we need to add 10 people. He said we'll go bankrupt if we add 10 people. Eventually he said yes, but I started to have reservations. Maybe I should drop back into school. This was just at the end of the summer break. I could have gone right back to school. I said, Bill, I'm going back to school. I need to tell you that. He grabbed his father, who was that tall, and me, and we went out to dinner, and he said to me, Steve, you don't get it. You really don't get it. I said, what don't I get, Bill? He said, we're going to put a computer on every desk and in every home. He invented that kind of as a mantra for us, as a way to capture the vision, because at the time I was thinking there just wasn't anything big enough and exciting enough about Microsoft. So having the ability in a startup or with a new idea, not just to see a product, but to see a whole path to change some walk of life, I think is very, very important. In fact, I think that's one of the exciting things about being in the technology business, is we still get the opportunity at Microsoft or folks doing startups to think about dramatically transforming the way people work and the way people live. So the first grand vision for Microsoft was all around microprocessor software. The power of software with microprocessors. As we were running hard and Paul Allen wanted us to do all of the world's software, a second compelling technology was being invented that we decided we were going to embrace because it would fundamentally change our company and our startup, and that was the power of graphical user interface. It's hard for people to remember, but there was a day when all you could put on a computer screen was simple letters. A, B, C, D, star. The first computer games I ever wrote were miniature golf games where you had to guess how many asterisks between your ball and the asterisk that represented the hole. That was computer gaming in about 1979, 80, 81. So along came graphical user interface, and it didn't change the fundamental vision of the company. What it did was introduce a new technology that could supercharge the vision that Bill and Paul had had. And really, it was on the power of graphical user interface that cheap, affordable, easy-to-use computers came into common usage. That didn't happen until about 1995, late 90s, really. So as you sit there looking at your startup, thinking about what you want to do, you're going to have to remember two more lessons. You need a big idea. You may have to stay with it a long time. And you better keep it current with the most modern technologies that are coming to market. Some of you will say, 15 years, Steve, come on, don't you understand? We work in internet time out here. And the truth is, things do move faster. The world does move faster than at the time we were doing our startup. But even with that said, most of the great companies do take a while to really build their momentum, to really get their formulas figured out. There are very few companies that go from nothing to something in 2, 3, 4, 5 years. With the rapid success of Twitter or Facebook, you could make certain assumptions. But you take a look at Amazon, probably 10 years before it really took off. Microsoft, 10 or 15 years before it really took off. Even Google, 8, 9 years before it really took off. So a powerful idea, kept current and refreshed and pursued with great tenacity. It's not much written, but I actually was involved in a second startup at Microsoft. And that's the whole notion of Microsoft as an enterprise company. Today, most people say, oh yeah, that's what Microsoft is. They sell to IT people, enterprise, blah, 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 blah. But in the late 1980s, we didn't sell anything to the enterprise. In fact, we had a bunch of people say, you're just a small little company. Nobody in a business would ever really want to buy your stuff. And yet the power of the idea of taking this microprocessor and not just putting it in personal computers, but putting it in the back end, in the data center, in corporate computers, was also quite powerful. Today, if you looked at our revenue and our profit, something like 2/3 to 3/4 would come on the power of the microprocessor data center. Now, why do I mention it? Because again, as you're driving forward, keeping your mind open, looking for other new applications of the fundamental vision, the fundamental technology, the fundamental power of your ideas, I think is very, very important. Knowing when to do that's also important. There's an expression that I'm sure I won't get right that came from Hewlett and Packard in the old days. They say more companies die of indigestion than overeating. And I think the concept is more companies and startups die because people try to do too broad a set of things as opposed to really doing a focused set of things very well. I'll tell you a little bit. We're in the middle now, and I've been at Microsoft 33 years. Microsoft's about 38 years old, and now we're finding ourselves having to start up again. It's kind of the ultimate lesson in the technology business, which is, frankly, in our industry, unless you're constantly inventing something new, your idea is getting old and tired. Technology companies, in a sense, must be continuously in startup mode. 10+ years ago, we started up Xbox. And later this month, we'll launch the Xbox One. We are in the process of starting up a new company focused in on devices and services. You'd say, Steve, isn't that the basic vision for Microsoft at this stage? And the answer is yes. But we're a company that was born a software company. But today we're having to remake ourselves for a world in which all software either gets delivered as a set of cloud services onto the internet or as a set of embedded capabilities in phones and tablets and PCs and other devices. So this notion of starting up and recreating yourself and continuous invention is a continual part of what we do. Along the way, we learned one other, I think, valuable lesson that I'll stress. It's funny, there's just enough angle there to trick. I'll bet when they get stage actors there, they're more adept than I am. The one other thing that we've learned about business startups is you do have to, in a sense, focus in on something that's important to somebody. We call that the high-value activities which define us. And what's high value to people is quite variant. I have a 14-year-old son. If you ask what's high value to him, he'll say almost anything that involves video games. I don't view those as high value for him, high value for Microsoft, but not high value for my little boy. On the other hand, serious fun is something that people will really engage in, pay for, play to. What we found along the way was we had a key ability to focus in on making people more productive. Productivity is a core part of our value. Serious fun became a core part of our value. Focusing in on the productivity of IT people and software developers became a core part of our value. So I'd say to all of you, you need to start with a sort of a big idea, keep it technologically fresh, stay after it, know into something new, but at all times, you have to be able to say, what am I doing in my startup, in my software, in my application, that some group of people is going to find of high value? Because value is where the businesses get created. Many startups get off the road with some kind of an idea. The startups that really stay on the road recognize that they need to find customers who have extreme value in the work that they do. Today, if you were to look at the Microsoft product line, it's quite different than the product line when we were a startup. We had products called Basic, Fortran, COBOL. We actually had our first hardware product when I joined. It was called the Soft Card. It was essentially an Intel computer you could plug into an Apple computer. It was kind of like the old world equivalent of Parallels on the Mac today or something. But even back then, there were concepts. Today, we're defining next generations of PCs through Windows, tablets through Surface, phones through the work that we're doing that we actually hope to acquire with Nokia. We're trying to provide services that are of high value to people in their personal lives, Bing, Skype, Office for homework, and at the same time, continue to focus in on the tools of productivity and communications and IT management that are very, very valuable in the enterprise. Everything's being remade into a device or a service. That is the future. I got some good news, actually. When I landed here in Italy, I noticed that our Windows Phone share, first country in the world where Windows Phone surpassed the iPhone. I don't know how long it'll last. We're going to hopefully go north from there. And I thank every Italian citizen for that. In a way, you can say even Windows Phone is a startup. Well-financed startup, but a startup. And we appreciate each of our emerging customers. We're going to do a little bit of a demonstration of some of our stuff and how it comes together. You're going to have a chance to hear from other startups later who are going to pitch some of their ideas, but because it's our event and we still think a little like a startup and love our stuff, we wanted to show you some of the most recent Microsoft products working together in full harmony to make people more productive and more valuable. So please welcome Luca from our Italian subsidiary on stage. Luca will demonstrate for you now. Luca.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks a lot. Wow, andare on stage dopo Steve è abbastanza complesso, però cercherò di fare il mio meglio. Buonasera a tutti, sono Luca Callegari, mi occupo del business di Surface in Microsoft Italia e stasera sono qui per raccontarvi la Connected Windows Experience. I due punti fondamentali della Connected Windows Experience che vi voglio raccontare sono la possibilità di personalizzare, customizzare il nostro sistema Windows cross devices, quindi di avere una personalizzazione forte e che si ritrova su tutti i device. La seconda peculiarità che vi andrò a raccontare durante tutta la demo è la possibilità di condividere contenuti in maniera immediata, illimitata in ogni momento della giornata. Ma senza perdere ulteriore tempo vi voglio far accompagnare in questo mia narrazione dai due miei compagni di viaggio, che sono Lumia 1020. Steve vi ha appena raccontato che abbiamo sorpassato Apple ed è solo l'inizio, quindi una startup solo all'inizio, il miglior camera phone oggi sul mercato mondiale, e Surface Pro 2, un prodotto che abbiamo lanciato da 2 settimane e che si posiziona come il miglior prodotto per un utente professional che cerca la produttività nel proprio tablet. Il primo punto che vi ho raccontato esattamente è stata la possibilità di personalizzare il device stesso. Come potete vedere dalla mia start screen, la start screen rispecchia esattamente me stesso. Quindi la possibilità di utilizzare quelli che noi definiamo live tiles o riquadri animati per poter avere le persone a noi più vicine e i contenuti a noi più vicini in ogni momento della giornata a contatto di un click. Nel caso specifico io ho la mia compagna di lavoro con la quale interagisco in maniera continuata, Alice, che ho deciso di portare sul mio start screen, e entrando nel mio start screen potete vedere come io posso interagire con tutti i social network con i quali Alice stessa interagisce, controllare qualsiasi upload che viene fatto delle foto da parte di Alice e le interazioni tramite SMS e chiamate che ho avuto in questo momento con Alice, quindi un'interazione continua a portata di un click. Nello stesso tempo, visto che il lavoro non è l'unica parte integrante della nostra vita di tutti i giorni, e essendo io un fan di qualsiasi tipo di sport a livello mondiale, ho deciso di avere una live apps, nello specifico Bing Sport, sul mio start screen, che mi permette di avere informazioni in tempo reale e immagini su tutti gli sport mondiali. Nel caso specifico potete selezionare la vostra squadra del cuore e avere informazioni su qualsiasi risultato o qualsiasi evento. Lo so cambiare, hai ragione. Ne ho due in realtà, avevo anche quella della Roma, perché ho uno dei due figli romanista, ragazzi, cioè è così. E quindi la possibilità di avere contenuti customizzati in ogni momento con voi. La cosa molto interessante è, se io oggi passo al mio tablet, vedete che la stessa tipo di esperienza, lo stesso tipo di live tiles, su uno sviluppo orizzontale invece che verticale, l'abbiamo anche sul tablet. Quindi, come avevo precedentemente Alice tra i miei contatti, tra i preferiti, l'ho anche in questo live tiles, e nello stesso tempo ho, come vedete, l'app di Bing Sport sviluppata per orizzontale, all'interno della quale posso interagire e avere tutte le informazioni sulle squadre di nostro interesse. Un'altra peculiarità di Windows 8.1 che sono riuscito a organizzare sul mio tablet è quella di avere delle aree macro tematiche, come vedete organizzate in Always On, Productivity, Game, Traveling e Entertainment, che vi permette con un solo clic di entrare nell'area di maggiore interesse. La cosa molto importante a questo punto è, come vedete, anche se voi non mi conosceste e vedete il mio Windows Phone e il tablet, potete facilmente riconoscere che appartengono alla stessa persona. Lo stesso tipo di customizzazione che avete visto in questo momento sui miei due device lo potete fare voi semplicemente e in pochi passaggi, e quindi customizzandolo e avendo sempre con voi le persone che maggiormente vi interessano e le informazioni di più interesse. La seconda parte che volevo illustrarvi è quella della possibilità di condividere contenuti di produttività e anche di vita privata, quindi nel caso specifico delle foto, multiscreen, screen che possono essere un tablet, come un Windows Phone, ma allo stesso tempo può essere anche lo schermo di casa, quindi il nostro PC di casa. E nel caso specifico, uno degli elementi di produttività maggiori che ognuno di noi, sia gli studenti che i lavoratori, utilizzano maggiormente grazie all'ecosistema Windows, è Microsoft Office. Microsoft Office con tutte le sue massime potenzialità, quindi con documenti di Word, con documenti di Excel, con documenti di PowerPoint e di OneNote, a oggi è presente anche con l'hub di Office all'interno del nostro Windows Phone, quindi preinstallato su Windows Phone. Questo ci permette quindi di interagire tra tablet e phone in maniera immediata. Scendendo a Roma questa mattina in treno, per massimizzare i tempi, ho deciso di lavorare a un file di Excel sullo stato patrimoniale di un nostro partner, e come potete notare, in maniera semplice, posso leggere in maniera ottimale i commenti fatti da me o da un mio collaboratore in remoto, e nello stesso tempo posso accorgermi, come nel caso specifico, che la sommatoria delle variabili delle expenses in questo caso non ha un valore assoluto. Posso inserire in maniera molto semplice un commento, richiedere a chiunque in questo momento accede tramite SkyDrive sul mio PC o sul mio tablet allo stesso documento, di fare la sommatoria . A questo punto lo salvo in maniera automatica, viene salvato, mi chiede il documento di essere salvato, automaticamente tramite la connessione con il nostro cloud viene salvato su SkyDrive. Vado sul mio tablet, apro il documento di Excel, vado tra i miei file recenti, trovo il break-even analysis, che è il documento sul quale ho appena interagito, e come vedrete potete notare i commenti che ho fatto in tempo reale su qual è stata la sommatoria da me necessaria. Nello stesso tempo, quello che posso andare a fare in tempo reale è la richiesta di una sommatoria, come voi normalmente fate su qualsiasi tipo di foglio in Excel. A questo punto, come vedete, la sommatoria è stata fatta, quindi sono 100.000 le expenses, lo salvo in maniera automatica tramite il cloud su SkyDrive, e in tempo reale posso riaccedere al mio Office Hub, andare tra i documenti recenti, andare a vedere il mio break-even analisi, aprire il documento stesso e noterete che nella sommatoria, mi chiede se voglio fare l'upload, noterete che nella sommatoria il 100.000 è stato riportato in tempo reale, quindi quello che è stato l'interazione tra tablet e phone avviene tramite SkyDrive in tempo reale e mi permette di essere sempre produttivo in qualsiasi situazione della giornata e su qualsiasi dispositivo io mi trovi. Ma visto che la vita lavorativa non rappresenta l'unica parte delle nostre giornate, un'altra delle funzionalità che utilizziamo maggiormente in Microsoft, ma come qualsiasi tipo di consumatore, è la possibilità di effettuare foto in tempo reale e condividere quindi i momenti più importanti della propria vita con persone che, come nel mio caso specifico di oggi, io ho 2 figli, ci tenevano un sacco a essere qui, soprattutto per conoscere Steve, e non hanno potuto venire, ma sono sicuro che in questo momento, perché stanno comunque facendo i compiti, sono connessi al proprio PC. Quindi vi chiedo di fare un saluto in tempo reale per loro facendo una foto, se non vi dispiace, e grazie al tasto hardware del mio device posso con un semplice clic fare un po' di foto, grazie, muovete di più le mani per favore, salutate, cheese, grazie mille. Essendo il device sempre connesso al nostro cloud, l'immagine viene uploadata in maniera automatica sul mio tablet in questo caso, ma potrebbe essere il mio PC di casa, e quindi entrando su SkyDrive, specificatamente sul quale ho già preimpostato il mio rollino, e cliccando sulle immagini recenti, come vedete, e voilà la foto di voi. Grazie. Questa è una breve demo per raccontarvi 2 delle features fondamentali, quindi la personalizzazione e la customizzazione dei contenuti cross-device nel nostro sistema Windows e la possibilità di condividere contenuti in tempo reale e senza nessun tipo di limite sui device. È solo l'inizio, avendo più tempo, di milioni di features che abbiamo oggi, ma spero di avervi dato un piccolo esempio delle potenzialità della nostra Connected Windows Experience. Grazie e richiamo sul palco Steve.
Since we have folks from startups in the room, people writing software, et cetera, I thought we ought to do just one more thing. It's kind of a lesson actually of startups. What is the most important thing to do other than to have a vision, pursue it with tenacity, know where your customers are going to derive value, remake yourself? It's to sell. You got to sell something. So I have to sell something this presentation. And since you're all developers, I thought I would just highlight some of the great opportunities to write your software, to build and extend Microsoft's platforms, to build for the Windows Phone, to build for Windows tablets and PCs, to use our Azure infrastructure to bootstrap and bring high productivity, high reliability cloud services to the market. You won't be alone. We have in our stores today over 200,000 applications, but some of the big ones have been missing. Facebook just launched, Instagram, Vine, Flipboard, RaiTV is launched. We think there will be incredible opportunity for all of you as developers to embrace our platforms, to use Azure on the back end, and to support the kind of rich client environments that Luca just had a chance to show you. So it's a time of unprecedented opportunity for developers and a time of unprecedented opportunity for Microsoft as we attack our new startup. If I could boil it down and leave you with 3 ideas, the power of your idea matters. Have a clear idea and pursue it. You're going to have passion because the road is not simple, whether it's the road to sell something, to find value, the time it takes to really build a great idea, and certainly to stay tenacious. I respect and admire all of you who are on this journey of software development and startup. I can assure you'll get the best support and partnership that we can provide you as a company, and we certainly wish you all the luck and all the success in the world. If our team here in Italy can help, let them know. And if they're not somehow able, Steve B at Microsoft.com. I'm always looking forward to hearing from aspiring young entrepreneurs. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you. Oh, so good. Thank you so much. Now, we have a pitch session. Three startups, three Italian startups. You can have a seat there. Over you already know Carlo Purasanta. Yeah, already? Meet each other already? Okay. Numero 1 di Microsoft Italia. Carlo Purasanta, un applauso anche per lui. Ha portato una bella ventata di innovazione, energia e positività a Microsoft in Italia, Carlo. Allora, non si finisce mai di imparare a stare sul palco. Noi tutti timidini andiamo, avete sentito che voce? Che presenza? No? Adesso devo fare